final best of 3 of the day. We obviously hope that all of you guys enjoyed the opening day. From here on out, there will be DreamHack Masters 6 days a week. So if you don't follow ESO_SC2, you should obviously do that. And make sure to show some love to the casters on the B stream as well. ESO_SC2B. We'll be here tomorrow and every single day. That is not a Monday, because on Monday, we have to watch Gabe win $200. In the top right side of 2K Atmosphere, we are looking at the main base of the Mexican Zerg player. Has never lost to his opponent before, but today could be the first day. This is Cham.
And in the bottom left-hand side, in the most important match out of all of those 20-something matches against Cham, does he have one Hadouken in him to make it happen? It's Ryu. It's a fire Hadouken here.
I feel like if he gets the W here after I predicted him to win, I am officially his scan.
I love it. All right, we'll see if that happens. I mean, Ryu, a very strong player, again, mostly macro-oriented, but Cham should know that, right? Like Cham, I mean, Cham is, I think as far as Zerg goes, maybe not just in Latin America, but maybe outside of Korea, Cham is the most Korean type non-Korean, right? Like as far as like just hitting timings and just being on the aggression, like he's always built his CVC at least, and other matchups as well, I think, from the ground up, like not aiming towards that macro game, but rather aiming for the timings, aiming to exploit. Like he's not afraid to go Naidos, he's not afraid to hit sharp timings, and he's excellent at that. So we'll see if Ryu can survive and stabilize.
Yeah, do you know anything about the way that Ryu really loves to play CVZ? Does he have like a standard style? Is he more like an A-laser where he likes to do weird things like wall up and keep you guessing, or is it all a little more face up?
I think he is the very Serral-like, right? Like not nearly as good as Serral, but he goes for that style. He wants to just get to the macro game. He wants to get to the lurkers. He wants to get to the Vipers, and he wants to play that late stage CVC where he has all of his bases covered, right? Like he wants to get the perfect scouting. He wants to just not die.
Okay. Well, 2K is a very good map for that, I'd say. One of the most standard, straightforward maps. It's been around for a long time now, but I feel like this is one of the maps where everyone is still kind of okay with it, right? Some of these other maps you can get really burned out on after a couple of months where you're like, all right, I've had enough of this. I personally have that with Curious Minds. But 2K, I feel like it's kind of timeless, to be honest, right?
Yeah, 2K is a pretty awesome map. As Ryu's going to put a little bit of damage here onto the hatchery of Cham. He takes this triangle, which is expanding towards Cham at this point, but didn't necessarily know that when he took it. So we'll see. Both going for a Baneling Nest. And yeah, we're going to have a little bit of Baneling Wars, a little bit of exchange of kind of actions here.
Cham is definitely the first one to fire up a lot of links, so I hope that Ryu is going to pick up on this and it's going to make a couple of safety units, because at this point he's only been droning, so he's definitely down a little bit in the link department. It's 22 links against 5. Ryu, we're playing with fire here. I'm trying to be your Ken mate, but you're going to have a very hard time keeping this hatchery alive.
Yeah, the Baneling morph is too late, right? But again, the Serral-like approach, I mean, Serral would have 4 Banelings, but he would already have a morph. And Ryu is not going to be in time to save his hatchery, unfortunately. Trying to defend with the bare minimum is going to cost him here. Yeah. So tries to get that economic lead, tries to defend with the bare minimum, not going to work out. Up until the highest level of play, it seems significantly earlier or significantly easier to be the attacker than the defender, right? Like the defender's always reacting, and it can be very difficult, especially in a matchup as volatile as this one.
Yeah, obviously there are no drones here yet. Maybe we can get a lucky Baneling connection, or maybe we can out-micro those Banelings a little bit off Cham. But it actually seems like the Banelings of Cham are in a very good spot there to connect with at least a couple of these links of Ryu. And it seems like Cham is going to pass this test without really too many issues. And that's just problematic, man. We lost the hatch. It's going to take a long time before that thing is up and running again. Cham is very far ahead after the first 5 minutes.
Yeah, very much so. And that should not have happened on the side of Ryu. He should have had those links ready to be morphed ASAP. And he should have morphed them as soon as his Baneling Nest finished. But not to be. And yeah, I mean, pretty much exactly what we were depicting as far as playstyles, right? It's going to be Cham that's going to be testing Ryu actively. And Ryu fails his first test.
Okay. Yeah, but if we lose the hatchery again, that's all for nothing. That is big. Killing 8 drones is lovely, but we are going to lose this hatch. He does cancel it at the absolute last second. Cham is going to try to fight all these queens. That's very hit or miss most of the time, and this time around it was a miss. Now, Cham does have a lot of roaches on the way. Ryu did make it up to Lair. That Spire goes down.
Like it.
Can we just like build spine crawlers on 2 bases and chill, like instead of trying to go up to 3 bases?
Yeah, I think he's gonna have to cancel that 3rd base again. So that's problematic. Does he see the roaches? He does, right? So yeah, I would love to see a couple of spines at the natural. The first one now going up, and he's gonna have to hold. This hatchery just buying him time for now.
Cancel. Oh, man, his cancels are very late.
Yeah.
Dangerous man.
Dangerous man indeed. As Cham is now posturing to try and take the fight to a Ryu that only made 1 spine. I mean, when you said spines, I completely agree, Roddy. 3 or 4 even wouldn't have been too bad. But I guess Ryu did invest into roaches as well. He does have a lot of queens too for the transfuse. So it looks like the 1 spine might be enough. And that's not the worst news in the world. Cham is not reinforcing. So yeah, his decision in this case was better than ours would have been, because Cham is not going to be able to breach.
Didn't have to lose a baneling there. We are 16 workers behind and a base behind, but we do have a Spire. Do you think that Cham could also build his own Spire, but then just go Roach Corruptor? I feel like if there was ever a Roach Corruptor moment, this is kind of a good Roach Corruptor moment.
Yeah, I completely agree. That would be a really good Corruptor game, because he has the excess minerals to work with. In a heads-up fight, Muta versus Corruptor, the Corruptor win gas for gas, like really by a lot. It's actually kind of crazy. I think it's something like a 20 Corruptors can beat 30 Muta type thing. Wow. So gas for gas, since they're like 100 gas each, it's amazing. But the mineral excess is where the Corruptors fall off, and they can get out microed. But if you have roaches pressuring already, then it's pretty good, you know, because your opponent has to use the Muta against the roaches or you just die. So yeah, I agree. It would be a great Corruptor game.
Cham sees the Mutas, and he's just going to immediately grab his units, send them to the other side of the map. So he's obviously aware of the fact that he's going to lose a couple of these, if not most of these, if he truly commits. But he just wants to buy time for everything at home. Ends up losing the Ravagers, is now going to lose a Roach by Roach. He's taking a very weird route. I know we're just trying to buy time, but I feel like if we are going to sacrifice this many units, maybe we could have gone a slightly different route. But he's buying time for the Spores. He's buying time for the Hydra Den. But I do think that Ryu, I don't want to say is completely back in this game, but he's kind of back in it.
He's giving himself a chance, right? Like he's been making drones now, and also roaches in between. So roaches for defense, but will double as offense. Cham not really retreating with those roaches fast enough, and those were speedless roaches as well. So very shy to overcommit. I still think Cham could have maybe poked a little bit further. But I mean, it's gonna do it for now, and he is transitioning into Hydras. He's gonna need lurkers, because if Ryu gets maxed on Roach Ravager and attacks him and Cham doesn't have lurkers, all of a sudden there's a good chance that Ryu can take this game.
It's gonna be hard to get lurkers though, right? Like, it's not that Cham has been ultra rich in this game. He does not have a 4-base setup. I kind of think he's just going to try to max out on Roach Hydra and attack with Roach Hydra, which is very risky, because if you lose the Hydras, you don't have the right amount of Hydras, as Ryu needs to be careful with his Overlords. He did such a good job with his Mutas, but these are donations, man.
Supply blocked. Yeah, he's mega supply blocked, and right now he wants to be morphing as many Ravagers as he can afford, which would be like 5 or 6, right? So that would have been decent, but as it stands, it looks impossible to hold this. Cham attack after attack, timing after timing. And this one is looking to close things out. I don't see how Ryu holds. The Concave favors Cham. The units favor Cham.
It's possible. With defensive reinforcements, if we use the Queens, we have a Spine Crawler. Maybe one time, cats. One time.
It would have been nice. I think with those Ravagers, if those Overlords don't die, with the Ravagers, I think we have a different story. Where it's at least a little bit closer. But as it stands, the Muta not enough to take down the Hydras in the back. And Ryu's going to have to tap out. Good effort.
He did have +1 missile attacks there, and he had +1 flyer attacks. I almost wish that we would have used the Mutas a little bit differently. Like, first, indeed, cut off the reinforcements, but then instead of going for the Hydra straight up, maybe bring them the other way back around and use them as a defensive unit. Yeah, I think the biggest point is indeed not having Ravagers, because it's not so much about landing the corrosive piles. It's a lot about just spamming them and then forcing your opponent to disengage, and then you buy more time for yourself to get those defensive reinforcements out. So.
Yeah.
Was a close game. You know, you wouldn't, if you look at these two, you wouldn't say that historically it's 10-0 in favor of Cham, and everyone loves a good comeback. So Cham takes the 1-0 lead. I'm still a believer.
Yeah, and I think Ryu is kind of peaking over the last year or two, whereas Cham, well, is also like kind of peaking, but maybe their history is like when Ryu was significantly worse, because like I have played Ryu since he started appearing, and obviously at first it was, you know, it was pretty good for me, but as time progresses, it's been getting harder and harder, and lately is, you know, as of the last year or two, he's invincible for me. Right, so I think that he has been consistently improving, and the record against Cham probably won't or shouldn't reflect that. But the reality is a little different. I think it's not a 50-50. I think Cham still, you know, like if we're talking about MMR, Cham still gotta be like higher than Ryu regardless. But Ryu definitely has chances here.
Game 2 is going to be played on Glittering Ashes. I think the second biggest map in our current map pool. For Ryu, obviously, it's important to have a cleaner start, like losing the hatchery that early on against just a couple of links, not even a big investment of Cham. Just, you know, let's make 16, 20 links. Let's see what we can get done. Yeah, getting a kill on the hatch is just way more than even most Zerg dreams are made of. Cham is going to look for something similar. Ryu just needs to clean up the early game a little bit. I think he did a good job in fighting his way back into that one. Unfortunately, it wasn't enough for him to get the W. Let's see what Game 2 has in store for us. Representing the Cranky Ducklings. We're looking at main base of the Peruvian Zerg, living in Italy. So playing these games with a little bit of a ping disadvantage that is worth keeping in mind. This is Ryu.
And at the bottom left-hand side of the map, it is the Mexican Zerg playing for GP. It is Cham.
How does Cham perform in the World Team League? I guess that's a question for Wardy, as he watches pretty much all of those games. If he's not too busy slaying some nerds in Pokemon, the trading card game. But I wonder how Cham has done for them. Wardy is actually hopping into our communications for a split second, and he lets us know that Cham is doing all right. He says kind of 50-50, so that's definitely not bad. That is, of course, a very competitive league.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, Cham is the type of player that has had results. Like in Korea, he has been to Korea a few times, and can be competitive. You know, on that region, even against some of the best in the world, he can cause upsets. He is a very aggressive player, and he is sharp, right? Like his timings really are top tier. Like he's not the most varied, the most reactive player that there is. But he has a little bit of that too. He can just be very, very aggressive. We saw that in the last game, for example. He moves out with so few Hydras. In CVC, that is so dangerous. If your opponent's going for Banelings, if your opponent made more Muta, all of a sudden you're throwing away units. But Cham works with very thin margins, very sharp objects, if you will.
Yeah, I was surprised about that too, because that was indeed not a crazy amount of Hydras at all. It's like he had maybe 3 or 4 Hydras more than there were Mutalisk out. And I'm like, man, that is risky, because imagine if a couple of Roaches do collapse, or if a Corrosive Ball would connect, then suddenly, if you lose the Hydra count, then you're never winning the fight, because then those Mutas will just be wailing away from above. Yeah, that was an interesting move out, but yeah, paid off dividend, right? He just straight up won the game. And we do kind of like that. We like players that don't make things overly complicated. You don't always have to do the win ahead, get further ahead. If you feel like you can win and you're convinced you can win, go ahead and win.
Yeah, it's still risky, right? Like he's working with so little information. He basically sees no reinforcing Muta, and that's the information that he needs to say, okay, you're making Roaches, I have more Roaches than you, right? But it's kind of working with, you know, like pretty risky information, pretty unreliable information. But still, I mean, he is a fantastic player. And even if that attack doesn't work, it's still kind of fine if he trades somewhat okay. So not the end of the world, but yeah, Cham is, yeah, I've talked to him a lot about approach in the game. Way back when, like when he was up and coming, he hired me as a coach, actually. And that's when I realized we just don't really connect well, like in terms of like how we see the game, because he has this very organized type of approach to the game, where I see it as more reactive, chaotic. He sees it as very sharp. So he wanted direct information. How do I do this? I'm like, I don't freaking know. You know, like react, like adapt.
Oh my god, that's fantastic. I expected that to go many ways, but I did not expect it to be like, and that is when he hired me. That's when I realized that we don't connect at all.
Yeah, man, like he's one of the very few pros that like actually like offered to pay me for coaching. I was like, oh no, like no way, you know, like you're at least at that point we were like fairly even. Mm-hmm. But I guess he liked my approach to the game, and yeah, I think I don't think he got much from the lesson, just because the approach is just so different that
I love it.
Yeah,
that's a great story, man. I appreciate that. Thank you for sharing. All right, so it seems like both players are having a very similar approach to this game, though. We made a couple of links just to make sure nothing crazy is happening, and we are ready in case our opponent is aggressive. Made a couple of safety bane links, but none of that really stands out either. And now we are just working on our attacks for the roaches, and we're going to keep a close eye on the production tab and see if someone wants to go Muras. And I have the feeling that if Ryu wanted to go Mudalisk in the previous game, he must absolutely love Muras in this one too. He's going up to 6 gases. I mean, that has to be a Spire, right?
Yeah, very likely indeed. I mean, this is more of an even game. I think that the Muta decision was kind of like required from Ryu to try and stabilize last game. This game, he could just go kind of more normal, right? So anything goes on his side of things. We might just have a Roach Fest.
Man, I'm ready. I'm still smiling. I'm not gonna forget that. I'm actually gonna use that line in life so often. That is when I realized.
We just didn't connect, yeah.
It's great.
We connected in different ways. I mean, yeah, Cham was a player for my team and a player that I hold dear, you know, but yeah, we don't see eye to eye as far as approach.
But I think that's also awesome about StarCraft, right? Is that we can all have a very different idea. And even if you think of like Raynor and Sero, if you hear them discuss certain things at offline events, those are 2 of the very best StarCraft 2 players that have ever lived. And they strongly disagree on a lot of little things on what to do. And I think that is what actually makes this game awesome and still interesting after all these years, where there are just so many ways to get where you want to be, and everybody has a different thing that works for them. Ryu is being a little aggressive here, with a lot of roaches and a couple of banelings in the mix too. Maybe wiggle those banelings into the mineral line. That's exactly what it's going to go for. Drones have been pulled though. The roach fight still feels like a little bit in his favor, but obviously Cham has the defensive reinforcements. So he's going to be fine.
Cham has a run by at the 4th for Cham, which means it's gonna get a cancel, and Cham gets to keep his 4th. So advantage Cham, but I do like that Ryu did mix it up a little bit here, getting a little bit aggressive here. This is a classic Cham move as well with the Overlord, as he has a little bit of a baning drop, but that could be roaches as well. Or, you know, if you're Ryu, you don't know.
No, this game is just getting hectic, man. 2 armies are running into each other in the center of the map. Cham is still on 4 bases, has a little run advantage. Does seem that the Ryu has a few more roaches here, or at least has the better concave. He's the one with speed, but that Dropper Lord should have a lot of potential. We go for the main, okay.
Yeah, I mean, it's a little bit riskier on the side of Cham to go for the main, but the 3rd is not fully saturated, so he wants the big bounty here. As a result, he's not going to get anything because Ryu gets to reposition. And he believes Cham for the time being. You know, you were talking about earlier about the mind game that can happen with the Overlords. Oh, he's gonna get caught in the middle of the map though. That's a lot of roaches that he's gonna lose. And
yeah, they were on the attack move. They were on attack move, so they turned around. That's why I would go ahead.
Yeah, my favorite mind game with Overlords is just to park and hold position on top of the mineral line so it looks like it was empty, and then when they bring back the drones, then you drop them. It works pretty often for me. Now, micro here for Ryu is going to be pretty good, actually, but will it be enough? He gets on top of the rest of the roaches while he still has a little bit of shelter with the roaches in the back, and he's going to have to evacuate with Roach Burrow. I mean, he could apply so much pressure on the side of Cham. The problem is Cham is in his face right now.
Yeah, Cham is just kind of out multitasking him. Obviously, there were a couple of banelings that ran into the 3rd while that baneling drop is going on. They got 6 drones, and the baneling drop